Okay. Hello, everyone. Good evening on the East Coast. Good afternoon on the West Coast in Seattle. I am Otilia Baraboy. I'm the Executive Director of the American Romanian Cultural Society, and we are pleased to hold a series dedicated to Romanian American writers in partnership with other organizations in the US, and I'm gonna say their name, and I would like the leaders of these organizations to briefly introduce themselves and drop links in the chat. So I see Bogdan Banu from Romanians of DC.
Hello, everyone. It's glad to have the opportunity to be here and support this event, and in particular, since Domnica, it's someone who is within our area, and we're very glad to partner with you and with the other Romanian American organizations. And I'm from Romanians of DC, and I'll put it in the chat our website for those that are interested to learn more about our activities. Thank you.
Thank you, Bogdan. And now I see Theodor Stan from Immigration Research Forum.
Yes, and also in Washington, D.C. We're proud to support the Romanian American writers, their unique voices and contributions to American society and to Romanian literature as well. Domnica is our chair, our current chair of the Romanian American Literary Circle, a circle that has been meeting for the past almost 2 years now. And Alina Ștefănescu, one of the guests of the evening, is the former chair who's struggled to keep it going through this pandemic. And Roxana Kazan, of course, she's a participant. It's a pleasure to be part of this and to have these public events that feature the unique voices of our diaspora writers.
Thank you so much, Theo. And now I will ask Mihaela Campion from Archer.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Mihaela Campion from Archer, American Romanian Coalition for Human and Equal Rights. And I'm very happy to be here with you tonight, Otilia and everybody else. It's always a pleasure to have these joint events. And also very proud that our executive director, Roxana Kazan, is tonight in the panel. And as always, Domnica, it's, in my heart with everything she does. And it's always a pleasure and an occasion to encourage her amazing work.
Thank you, Mihaela. And now Andreea Rebăltescu from Romanian United Fund, also based in Chicago.
Hello, hello, hello. Happy to see all of those that I already know, and I'm very nice to meet those that I don't. Andreea Rebăltescu, Romanian United Fund. I'm the Director of Communications, and it's awesome to be able to partner with all these awesome organizations and do this event for you. I can't wait to listen to Domnica and to tell us about her book, and I'm just excited to be here. I'll drop the link and we'll talk.
Thank you so much, Andreea. And I would also like to mention two other organizations that are not here represented tonight, but they supported the event, they promoted it. So Arizona Romanian Cultural Collective, Marie-Louise Paulescu and Juliette Paulescu, and also Romanian Bucharest Inside the Beltway with Cristina Bejan. Thank you so much, Cristina and Julie and Marie-Louise for promoting the event and offering more visibility to our diasporic writers. So I want to acknowledge the presence of Ilana Marin, who is a co-founder of ARCS.
Oh, thank you, Otilia. As you all know, I'm Ilana Marin, the chair of the board of ARCS, and very proud to be part of this program. And very happy to be with you all and listen to the conversation that's coming. And it's already announcing to be very interesting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. And I will continue by introducing the guests. We're very honored to have with us today Domnica Rădulescu. whom you all know, of course. She is a Romanian-born American writer. She arrived in the United States in 1983 as a political refugee, fleeing from Romania, the dictatorship. She settled in Chicago, where she obtained a master's degree in comparative literature and a PhD in Romance languages from the University of Chicago. She is the Edwin A. Morris Professor of Comparative Literature at Washington and Lee University. She is the author of 3 critically acclaimed novels, Train to Trieste, that was translated in 13 languages, and is the winner of the 2009 Librarian of Virginia Fiction Award, Black Sea Twilight and Country of Red Azaleas, and also many award-winning plays. In 2011, she received the 2011 Outstanding Faculty Award from the State Council of Higher Education for Virginia, and she's also twice a Fulbright Scholar. She also published 14 nonfiction books, edited and co-edited collections on topics ranging from the tragic heroine in Western literature to feminist comedy, to studies of exile literature, to theater of war and exile, refugee art, and 2 collections of original plays. 2 of her plays, Exile is My Home and The Town with Very Nice People, were runners-up for the Jane Chambers Playwright Award in 2012 and 2013. All right, so we're pleased today to talk about her first memoir, Dream in a Suitcase, The Story of an Immigrant Life, that was published in December 2021, so last year. I'm gonna go and introduce Roxana Kazan, our second special guest tonight. She has taught literature, creative writing, and women's studies courses at St. Francis University in Pennsylvania, and is now currently teaching at the University of Oklahoma. She is an interpreter and translator of Romanian and a poet. Her poems have been featured in Poets Readings News, the Windsor Review, Cold Creek Review, Construction Literary Magazine, Glass Lyre Press, and there's quite a few, so I won't tell all the names. She has 2 full-length poetry books, The Accident of Birth and Tethered to the Unexpected, that just got published this year. And I'm happy to reveal that Roxana will come back and will be a special guest in our series in May, so please stay tuned for that. And she's also the co-editor of the anthology Voices on the Move, an anthology by and about refugees, published by Solis Press in 2020. All right, and I'm gonna say a few words about Alina Ștefănescu, our guest. She opened the series last month, actually. She was born in Romania and lives in Birmingham, Alabama, with her partner and 3 children. Recent books include creative nonfiction chapbook, Revolt, and Dor, which won the Wandering Agnes Press Prize in September 2021. Her debut fiction collection, Every Mask I Tried On, won the Bright Horse Books Prize in April 2018. Her poems, essays, and fiction can be found in Prairie Schooner, North American Review, World Literature Today, Pleiad, Poetry Bomb, Crab Creek Review, and many others. We can drop a link to her website and also to Roxana's website and Domnica Rădulescu's websites in the chat, so you can check out their work. Alina is also a co-director of PEN American's Birmingham chapter. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here tonight with us. It's an honor and a pleasure to have you tonight. I will start by asking, I would say, the obvious question, and first to Domnica. Domnica, the memoir form is not a form that is largely, known in Romania, let's say. And also there's not many Romanian American writers, female writers, that have written memoirs. Actually, there's one that comes to my mind, Carmen Bugan's memoir. There's only quite a few. So can you share a little bit about the creative process, why you chose this form after you wrote novels and plays?
Yes, sure. Hello, everybody. Good evening. I guess nobody's dancing on a Saturday night tonight. And so nice to hear about the existence of so many vibrant Romanian diasporic communities or non-diasporic from Romania that are promoting the arts and literature and progressive thinking. And maybe Juliana can turn off her mute herself. It's hard to.
Yeah, so please everyone mute yourselves. I will try to keep an eye on everybody and Juliana too. So, but yeah.
So first I want to thank you, Otilia, for putting this together, and Theodor Stan, who's been such an amazing supporter of communities of Romanian artists and women in particular. And I very much want to thank Roxana and Alina, Roxana Kazan, who has been such a fantastic collaborator, and also to whom I owe a very good amount of editing of my memoir. She and I have been collaborating for a couple of years. We co-wrote Voices on the Move, we co-edited Voices on the Move, and I'm always very grateful for her work and the contributions, and I admire her greatly. And I'm super excited as well to have Alina Ștefănescu as part of the discussion, who is a brilliant poet, as is Roxana. I'm just overwhelmed and very honored to be here. And hello, everybody, on this Saturday night from wherever you may be. The memoir, yes, the first thing I want to say to that is that when my first novel, Train to Trieste, was first published, and everybody was asking me, surprisingly so, that was not what I was expecting would happen when this first novel broke through the literary scene, both in the States and in many other countries. The persistent question from readers and from reporters and journalists was, is it autobiographical? How autobiographical is it? And that question really annoyed me, because I felt there was always a hidden agenda to it. Like, I caught you, you know, it's autobiographical. You put your story in it. Maybe it was my perception of it, but in any case, I felt like there wasn't enough attention to the construction of the novel, to the aesthetic aspects of it. I had worked very hard to create that novel. It took many, many years of writings and rewritings and edits, and then for it to be, for me to find an agent, and then for it to be published, so on and so forth. And it seemed like there was this sort of almost cannibalizing a desire for people to find out, where am I there? And often people would talk to me and refer to my character Mona and say you know, as if I was in all of them. Now, of course, every artist's work has various degrees of autobiographical realities and information, because we all write from and create from our souls, from our hearts, from our experiences. But there are, of course, degrees. The Train to Trieste, though it was inspired by my overall existential arc of growing up in communist Romania, escaping through Italy, and then ending up in Chicago, was not an autobiography or a memoir. So at that point, I said to myself, I will never, ever, ever in my life write a memoir, period. But then I wrote my second novel, Black Sea Twilight, that was somewhat autobiographical, but not too much. And then my third novel, Country of Red Azaleas, that was inspired by the Bosnian War of the 90s. And then at some point, after I published my third novel and I started to write my fourth novel called that I've just completed, titled My Father's Orchards, something happened, something twisted in me, and I felt that maybe the story of my life and the substance of my life could make an interesting topic for the novel of my life. That I just suddenly felt a need to, in fact, put it all out there and craft this messy life of mine into a beautiful aesthetic mess in the form of a book that I still consider a memorialistic novel, because I've written it, have crafted it in the same way as I've crafted my novels, with a vision of an orchestration of it, of me as becoming this heroine, this other person. And as my favorite writer, Marguerite Duras, has said when she published her most autobiographical novel later in life, that really the very idea of autobiography is an impossibility. Because once you turn your life into a story, it's a story, and then there is always a level of fictionalizing, and a memoir is really the story of one's memory, and particularly the memory of an exile, of someone who has been displaced and whose life has restarted at least once, is a very unreliable vehicle of experience and of reality, and is very fluid and very movable. So therefore, for that reason, in fact, the aesthetics of my novel and the way it's crafted, of my memoir novel, is not at all chronological. It goes back and forth. It moves in time. It starts with the day of my departure, my escape from Romania to Italy, and then moves my childhood, and then moves to my arrival in the United States in Chicago. And there is this constant back and forth between, in terms of its temporality with chronology. It's very circular, or even spiraling chronology. It's also written in several voices, not just the first person, but also the second person, the third person, precisely because I had this need to illustrate the doubling and the tripling of my existence and of my voices and of my realities as an exile artist, and as an immigrant writer, and as a writer in general. So that is, in short, a little bit the origins and the motivations behind this dream in a suitcase.
Thank you so much, Domnica. Excellent. I would like to ask now Roxana and Alina, how did this particular form spoke to them as a female writer, actually, and poets? Did you find this, gendered experience actually of the refugee particularly enlightening for you, for your own experiences, having left Romania behind? And also, given the fact there's only a few testimonials of this kind, actually. So in terms of collective memory formation, this is an important piece, right, that we will refer to in time from now on. So
yeah,
either
I'm supposed to go first. Thank you, Alina, for allowing me. Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much for inviting me, Otilia, Domnica, Alina, Theo, all the participants. It's really great to meet you. I don't want to take too much time to show my gratitude, although without, like Alina mentioned, without these events, I would have been completely alone. So thank you for giving me a community, even if it's only virtual at this point. But this really speaks about the ways in which a memoir really rang true, the memoir's events rang true to my own experience. I kept reading, I don't know, a couple of years ago when I saw the first draft, or one of the first drafts, and I kept thinking, oh my gosh, is this my life? Parts of it were just so much, so familiar to me. I kept wanting to read more to see if I can continue to recognize myself. And in many ways they did. So one of the things that really appealed to me in terms of the genre of the memoir is the idea that writing there's a certain kind of situational knowledge and authorizing experiences that can be translated into writing that is valued in academia. Like Domnica, I've also attempted to create a career in the academia and as a writer as well. I feel that not a lot of that is taken seriously when a woman does it. And I really admire the courage to really, go out there and argue that there is a space for memorialistic writing, not only, for the wider public, but in the academia itself. And so the other reason is because the memoir, and particularly Domnica's memoir, talks about this or offers two types of coping mechanisms with that allow one to reconcile identity and rifts, and to find their proverbial tribe, and those things are language. And not just language at the level of the linguistic expression, Romanian versus English and so on, but also the ways in which language is very circular, right? In the ways in which memory works, and in the reinvention and the recrafting of memory, and the witnessing at a distance, right? And you see that in the memoir over and over again, from the sentences that connect with end to a lot of references that keep being picked up again later at a later time. And then the other thing, which is a coping mechanism that I'm noticing in Domnica's writing, particularly her most recent writing and the dramatic writing, is nature. Nature as a coping memorism. And I would argue, that there's space for a very unique ecofeminism that I'm noticing here. And speaking about Dominica's work in general, because I had the great satisfaction of encountering her work in graduate school and including her 3 novels in my dissertation in one of the chapters that was awarded a prize, an academic prize as well. So I got to know Domnica through her novelistic work before meeting her personally and before reading her other kinds of work. So I'll stop here for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Roxana. Excellent observations. So, Alina, would you like to add your own reflections as as a reader and friend?
Yes. First of all, to thank Domnica and everyone for having me here. I think one of the things that I loved the most about this memoir was, in America, there's a certain idea of redemptiveness, especially when a female is speaking. She tells the things that she did wrong and then how she was saved. And I think that that's tied to the salesman side of America, the 250-year history, the way in which everyone reinvents themselves. And the way that Domnica does that in this memoir is not an attempt to be redemptive. It gives us a speaker who is not trying to be likable, which is, I think, one of the great temptations of Western femininity in so many ways. And what I also really, really found compelling, and it makes perfect sense that Domnica loves Dura, because there is no purity, right? Purity isn't extended here as a goal. So, for example, she in the section where she's coming to the US, and she encounters some graffiti on a wall in an underprivileged community. And she's talking about how she's looking at her father who's lonely and he has tears on his face, and she couldn't see very far into her future, but she wanted to be Black or Mexican, Guatemalan or Jamaican. I wanted to meet Carmencita and Jamal, the people on the names, on the graffiti on the city wall, that were confident in their own skin and members of lively communities that had fun despite the poverty. I wanted to be part of such a community. And I have heard that in so many Romanian circles. I think being a smaller diaspora, where in a lot of our towns, we don't have a large community, and there's a longing to be part of something bigger. And that also is conveyed again and again in the memoir, in a heartbreaking, but also in a defiant way, in an insistent way. Domnica looks at it, she turns it, she flips it, the voice changes. So the formal innovations in which she does this are also compelling. And I think it was a great relief to hear some of the impurities of the female voice or the gendered voice, right, coming out. That to me was really relieving. So I loved that.
Thank you so much, Alina. And without further ado, I would like to invite Domnica to read us from her novel, a few passages that will refer directly to what we've been discussing and some other surprises. And then we will take questions and time to reflect on what on her reading.
Thank you so much. It's interesting that you're calling it a novel, and I like that because
no, sorry,
no, it is a memoir. Yeah. I call it a memorialistic novel. Yeah. And originally, the original subtitle was "Dream in a Suitcase: The Story of my refugee life," and then it became the story of an immigrant life, because other than it being a cathartic process for me to write this, and the process of liberation and of freeing myself, but also an exciting process of crafting that with aspects of my life into a work, and sort of capturing my memory. The purpose of it and the drive that pushed me to keep writing it and to reveal parts of myself that are, and parts of my life that are not necessarily, as Alina said, that present various vulnerabilities in which I expose myself and I render myself vulnerable, because I felt, what's the point of writing one's life, of writing a memoir, if one is not going to be viscerally honest? And there is no point in it. And in my attempt, in my being so viscerally honest and exposing myself to everybody's cannibalizing me, which I refused to do it 12, 13 years ago, I also wanted to reach out to communities of immigrants and to create bridges. And I'm so happy that actually there's a reason why Roxana and Alina are joining this conversation, is because our work, though in different genres, really intersects in very important aspects, you know. And I love to promote my dear friend's volumes. This is Roxana's new book and Alina's new book, and it gives me a great sense of joy to know that I'm supported and that I live now in this wonderful community of women writers. And I do stress women because, yes, my memoir is my novelistic, my memoir is, or my memorialistic novel is, as Alina has already mentioned, is very much the work, the expression of a woman writer, relating the gendered experience of immigration, because immigration, as so many other experiences, is also a gendered experience. And it is also a feminist book, a very unapologetically feminist book, which I am my own kind of feminist, which at times is not necessarily in line with American white feminists, but with many others, and also my own brand of it. So I'll read a few passages to give you a little bit of a taste of the book and its various moods. This is from the first chapter called Escape. And as I said, the first chapter starts with the day of my departure, which I consider it being that day of my escape, leaving Bucharest in 1983 towards Italy, towards my great adventure, as my defining moment, my one defining action, from where everything shifted and where I had to recreate myself. So this is the very end of the first chapter, when I'm at the customs at the border and I'm trying to get on the plane, but the customs police is stopping me for a while. Images of communist doom and of a future in black erupt in my conscience. at a nauseating speed as I'm standing in front of the customs officers with my suitcase wide open like an obscene show of violated privacy. The customs woman looks at me, talks to the other customs officers, looks at me again and says, "Go." I stand and stare at her. My mother hears her from behind the line where she stands to see me off. With oceans of tears in her eyes, she says, "Go." But I just stand there. I gather all my energy to start moving. And once I move, I feel free. I walk towards the plane at a steady pace without looking back at my suitcase or at my parents, not knowing if my luggage will ever make it on board the plane. I don't care about the suitcase. I am my one and only suitcase. And the suitcase is obviously a symbol, but it is also a very literal object that traverses the entire book. I have a lot of suitcases. It's an obsession because I always feel like I have to be ready to go, to run. I guess as refugees, we feel that. The next chapter that I will read just a couple of passages is called My America Now. I now live in a house with bay windows, a red front door, green chimneys, and an orchard in the back. I am the first in my family to own a house in America, to dislocate my Romanian family line and thrust it into the red clay earth of a small town in the Shenandoah Valley in a southern state of the old Confederacy. Not New York, not Chicago, not Los Angeles, not Cleveland or Philadelphia, where most Romanian Americans and indeed most immigrants live. American small towns are mostly inhabited by American-born people. It is the urban areas that are famous melting pots, I thought when I was living in Chicago, working on my university degrees one after another, managing several jobs at the same time, from drugstore cashier and media equipment operator to French teacher for kindergarten, from English as a second language instructor to refugees from Cambodia and Laos to French lecturer at the university. In the end, all those degrees and my collection of jobs earned me a teaching position at the university in a town the size of 3 Chicago blocks. The French call this kind of town l'Amérique profonde, or deep America, the kind that no French tourist or any other foreign tourist is interested in visiting, the one where everyone, from the auto mechanic with a deep Southern accent to the cashier at the local organic food store or the colleague in the computer programming department, comment on my accent and ask me about Romania, despite my having lived here a couple of decades too many. And yes, since I have spent more life than in any other part of the world in this small town in Virginia, because of the position at the university brought me here, and various circumstances ended up keeping me here longer than I ever thought. And thus my life's and immigrant journey took a direction that I never, ever, ever would have expected, that I would end up living for such a long time and making a career and a life in a small town, the urban person, the city girl that I always was. But that is the life of a refugee, I guess. One never knows where life is going to throw us, and the choices we're going to make out of necessity, sometimes out of ambition. Yes, the next one is the arrival in America. So see, I go back and forth, and it's in 1983, my arrival in America in Chicago, the coldest winter of the century, and it's called Welcome to America. My parents and I landed on American soil at JFK Airport in New York on a dark December day, dizzy and exhausted from the 10-hour flight filled with turbulences. Our 3 suitcases were vigorously kicked around by the American airport workers, who also greeted us with several swear words as we tried picking our luggage up. We were not supposed to pick it up until the porters were going to place all suitcases coming off that plane in one place in the terminal. Our refugee airplane had special treatment. Despite the rude awakening to American airport procedures, I was glad I could pick up the swear expressions, what the fuck, get the fuck out of the way, and motherfucker. The American gangster movies I had seen on our tiny black and white TV
It served some good purpose. From the payphone at the airport, I called Zoila to tell her we had arrived in America, in New York, and we were waiting for our plane to Chicago. She said she was so excited. I'm going to wait for you at the exit. I can't wait to see you. I called her Colette because she had told me to when I called her from Rome, which to me sounded like Colette, the French writer. Despite my years of studying English language and literature, I still stumble through many colloquialisms, and my knowledge of Shakespeare, Emily Dickinson, Thomas Hardy, or French writers like Colette was either a huge source of confusion or of funny coincidences, like in this case. Zoila waited for us at O'Hare Airport wrapped in a fluffy gray fur coat and screamed with joy when she saw us. Her sister Mireia was with her, and the two of them spoke Spanish to one another, the sound of which made me feel somewhat at home. Any of the Romance languages made me feel more at home than English, which still seemed cold and felt like I was talking out of a textbook. We descended upon Chicago in the coldest winter of the century, and I had no words to describe that cold. I immediately realized that before I did anything else I had thought I would do in America, I had to learn how to survive the cold of that historic winter. That was going to be a main job, surviving the cold. And now I'm moving further to a portion that I know Roxana identifies with, and she connects with. This is years later as I am moved from Chicago, finished my doctorate, and have settled in Lexington, Virginia. And because of this double settling, first in Chicago as my first American home, and then in the small town in Virginia, I consider myself sort of doubly exiled because arriving in a small town was in the South seemed to me like I had arrived on a different planet and was somehow harder and more of a culture shock than the original culture shock of arriving in Chicago on the coldest winter of the century. Then just for the obvious reasons of because large urban areas have a sort of commonality of reality and of experience, whereas there is such a profound difference between the life of a large city, particularly in the United States, and the small town. And but this was where I chose my ambition and my ideals and my dreams of pursuing an intense academic life brought me. And here is where my younger son was born and where my children grew up. So it is my de facto home. But now this is in the 90s, where I'm struggling as a single mother and an academic. Everything is now unbearably in the present, all crowded at the same time, as if no past has ever existed behind and no future will ever unfold ahead. Only the present exists in a perpetual static rotation, and it is raw and incoherent, a messy toy box filled with junk from lava lamps to unpaid bills to dirty diapers to nasty court motions to every possible beanie baby animal, toucan, tarantula, or penguin, to a walk in the park shuffling through the russet and scarlet leaves, scarlet like my past that keeps pouring its shameless contents into the present. I am all alone in a southern provincial town with 2 small children and a full-time teaching job. That's the bottom line, and I see the bottom, and I see the line. They're black on black or red on red, dark. I'm the most foreign person in town, and then am even foreign to my own self. Oh, Roxana really connects to this, and this one is for Alina, my definition of a refugee as a con artist. And this is on my return in after 16 years. I only returned to Romania after 16 years in 1999 with 2 children and from different marriages and my second husband. And I am on the plane returning to Romania via France and via Italy. If I had known then what I know now, would I still go through everything I have been through? Who cares? For here I am on this Air France flight trying to figure out what distinguishes a refugee person from a non-refugee person. Someone who ran away from their birthplace to a different corner of the world for safety, freedom, a loaf of bread, whatever. From someone who has grown up and lived their entire lives in the same place where they were born. I give myself a multiple choice exam on this fundamental question with a cautionary note that in the past I had flunked the GRE exam for graduate school and was accepted solely on the merit of my personal statement and the transcripts of a year and a half of American college, that I had barely passed the GED exam, which I had to take in order for my college diploma to be released, since I had left Romania with no high school diploma and couldn't get one without the other. Thank God and my Romanian English teachers that I had passed the TOEFL English proficiency exam with a grade for native English speakers, or I would have ended up as a non-US citizen with no college diploma, not to mention without a PhD, a bum in the streets, instead of the associate professor of French that I am. To think that so much depends on so little, filling out the wrong or the right bubbles in a multiple choice test. Multiple choice exams are definitely not my forte. But I'm really tempted to try the refugee, non-refugee one, since I can get no sleep, squished as I am between the kids and my snoring husband. A refugee is someone who A, speaks with an accent, B, is divided between two languages or cultures, C, ran away from a bad country and moved to a better one, D, is poor and wants to be rich, E, has no home, F, leads a nomadic life and is sexually promiscuous, G, has two homes, H, cannot go home again, I, is a con artist. I stare at the list that I wrote on the back of my boarding pass and smile at how ingeniously I combined bogus answers with true answers to confuse the student, meaning myself. I can only choose one, and although there is something to be said about the truthfulness of almost each one of them, I am drawn to the last one, is a con artist. I know there is something more to being a refugee than just the cliche lines about searching for a better life, running away from oppression, the American dream, being uprooted, living between cultures, blah, blah, blah. But that's not all, and not the very bottom line of what distinguishes a refugee from a non-refugee. There's something else even more mysterious. A refugee is a con artist because you're no one in the new country, a non-entity. And then you have to choose what and who you want to be. Then you must stick with it if you are to make it. Play the game, smile, pretend you know the rules, even when you have no idea what the fuck is going on. While deep inside, you try desperately to keep a shred of who you once were in the original place where everybody knew you and saw you grow up, as opposed to here, where there are no witnesses to your history. As you learn the con artist thing, that shred of your deepest core becomes thinner and thinner, and you almost become the one everybody thinks you are in the new country, but not quite. They still recognize you by the accent, by a mannerism, or a badly used idiomatic expression. That's where they get you, at the idiomatic expressions. It's like being on a witness relocation program. You start over, zip up the bag that was you, and throw it in the river or in the ocean like a corpse you're trying to get rid of. Sometimes you're lucky and they never find the body. Other times the body washes ashore and somebody recognizes something about the old you because maybe they're from the same bloody place you came from and they're better con artists than you are, or they saw you throwing the body overboard when you left your guard down. Your smiles turn to grimaces and they report you because there is a secret police in almost everybody that walks down the street, and then it's all over. You're done. You can't go back. And you can't stay where you are. You have to jump ship and go after the corpse you threw overboard, after the old you that is dead and rotting on some distant shore anyways. By the time we arrived at Charles de Gaulle Airport, I feel like a criminal on the run from the intensity of the multiple choice self-examination I have been subjecting myself to. Lack of sleep always does a number of me. but the children are relatively rested and excited. They landed in Paris, their backpacks on and ready to go. I will stop here and leave a couple more passages from, for the end.
Well, thank you so much, Domnica. I do remember reading this passage on the con artists and the fact that as of course, your experience is counted like in a circular manner, like you said, and also Roxana, you're going back to some of the, let's say, the first time you arrived in Chicago. And I remember you were saying that your facial muscles were hurting from trying to laugh and from being, you know, that smile all the time, but inside you were feeling there's a big disconnect of who you were and the pressure of being, there's a certain performativity, you know, to being a refugee and an immigrant. And I think that this memoir is the journey to your whole self. So towards the end, you're like, this is who I am. These parts, these are, you know, this is my whole being, and I want to fight for this, and I want the fight, kind of, you know. So I don't have to perform, you know. Here I am, you know. I'm vulnerable, and I'm made out of different pieces and puzzles that you might not like, but this is my journey. And I think the fact it's so refreshing for all of us who have to perform, or who are still performing, and where I think, you know, different roles, that to read this. So I'm gonna please you know, react, ask questions. Roxana and Alina, I know she chose those passages for you exactly.
For the two of you, I want to say one thing is that that is very true. Everything you said, Otila, is so perceptive and insightful. That one thing that I stress on in the memoir, and actually it was a process of discovery for myself as I was writing it, is that something that is very little talked about is that we talk a lot about the culture shock, but so much of the shock that we experience, particularly moving from a European country to the United States across the ocean, that so much of the shock happens in the body. And we do not talk so much about the shock that our bodies suffer from this transplant, this dislocation, coming out from breaking ourselves, our roots from one earth, and flying across oceans and trying to adapt and to new climates, to new geographies, to new cuisines, to new air, to new temperatures, to new people. Everything is a shock to our body, and I have several chapters that deal with that, particularly my first summer in Chicago.
Yeah. Roxana or Alina, feel free to comment on. And I can, you can ask questions in the chat and I will read them for you, or you can, you know, unmute yourself and address them directly. I see a question from Mario Stan.
It's a comment.
A comment,
it's
yeah.
A comment, but thank you for giving me the opportunity. It may be very different question from what naturally would align with the discussion so far, but I hope you'll find it entertaining, and I look forward to your answer. Can you tell us a bit about your writing process? How do you write? What time of the day do you have several drafts? Do you perfect each chapter before going to the next one, or about the mechanism, your writing style, if it's not too intrusive?
No, it's good. It's an interesting question. Well, it varies from book to book, and I really have written my books at all hours of the day. When I was writing my novels, when I was still caring for my children who were at home, it was really a matter of finding the time and the energy and the peace of mind. So I often woke up very early, just like I wrote my doctoral dissertation, getting up at 4:30 and 5 before my first son was waking up. So
even though it was a little bit grueling, and this is how I wrote a lot of my first novel, and particularly my third novel. My sons then were teenagers moving on to high school and getting ready to go to college. And the early morning hours from 5 or 6 to 8 or 9 were very good because of the clarity of the early day and of that time at sunrise and before sunrise that is very magical and very pristine, and where the mind is unpolluted by all the stuff that we go through during the day. So I have adjusted a lot of my writing styles really to initially to the lifestyle of being a single mother and finding the time to write in between, either very early in the morning or late at night. Once my sons are out of the house, I really have allowed myself to write at different hours of the day, but still I remained with as I said, The Country of Red Azaleas, my third novel. I wrote a lot of it early in the morning. And the memoir was a little bit of a different kind of writing, even though it is true that I wrote it, I started to write it as a novel, but there was a real joy and sort of expectation in writing it. So any chance I had, any moment of the day I had, I went back to writing it, and I wrote it sort of breathlessly, but I do go through a lot of rewrites, and I wrote I go through, and also I don't always write the chapters in sequences. Sometimes I wrote a later chapter and then I come back. But I would say that by and large, as a writer, I'm pretty disciplined, and I try to write when I start writing a novel. I try to set or a book of large breadth, like this one, like the memoir, which is like 332 pages. I try to establish a certain discipline because I feel like being a writer is a job, like another job. It is more so really because writing and being an artist is not just what I do, but what I am, and is the main reason why I left Romania. I could have had marriages and children and divorces in Romania as well, but I couldn't have had the accomplishment of an academic life and the freedom of expression, and couldn't have developed, thrived in the ways that I have, despite all the obstacles and all the aspects of American life that I don't particularly care for.
Thank you. And let me just say that I enjoyed reading the book.
Oh, you read it?
Yes, I read it. I found it on Kindle, in fact, on Amazon. And it's a very good book. So congratulations.
Oh, thank you so much, Marius. Thank you so much.
I just wanted to appreciate what you said there, Domnica, about writing as labor, because we don't think about writing as labor, but it is labor. And, just like motherhood, for instance, another kind of like unnoticeable, hidden type of labor for which we don't really receive any, acknowledgement outside of the, in the public sphere and stuff like that. So is writing, like until you get to write, to publish your work so that it becomes, it starts to live outside of your own body and your own like immediate space. It's an endless type of, of work and struggle.
It is labor. It's work. It's very hard work. Just sit down and the inspiration is one thing. And when I write a novel, I usually have characters start to swarm around me and live with me. But for me to craft them, I need to sit down and write for several hours. And also writing is something that you do even when you're not writing, right? Like I write, I think when I swim, when I walk, it's a continuous process.
I was going to say another thing that I really appreciated was the way that single motherhood is addressed. As someone who started as a single mother, I was constantly made aware of how important it was to be married for others. And where my goal was love and relationships, right? Fulfilling relationships, I appreciated deeply the erotic side of the life that comes out in your memoir. There was this scene in Romania where you go back to the ex-lover or the first love, who is in that bed, and I say the speaker takes off their clothes. That scene to me felt was just beautiful. It was a statement. It added different levels to eros, right? It was not a commercial transaction. It was a sort of sexuality that I don't hear written about often in the U.S. And I do associate it more with sort of French female writers. But I loved that. I felt freed by it, reading it, and also seen somehow. So I just wanted to say that too.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was fun to write, but also it wasn't easy because I never rendered myself so vulnerable to the whole world. But somehow I felt it as a necessity, particularly since, that first love was somewhat a source of inspiration for my novel, Train to Trieste. But then that character was so composed and so fictionalized. But somehow some wicked here it is. You got it. Now what? Now here it is. So I went for sort of, because I am much of a person of extremes. I went from being extremely cagey when about my personal life when my novel first came out, to like laying it all out and putting it all out there. Oh, almost all, because of course I was also very, very careful in what I wanted to reveal or not. But yeah, that scene that you mentioned, where the heroine lies on the floor naked without doing anything, just lying there on the floor, was actually fun to write and to remember. And the process of remembering is, I see that one of the comments in the chat is about the painful memories. And yes, I did go through like some pages, but that happens with other novels too. Some pages I would write sobbing and crying, others like really, really excitedly and laughing to myself. And I think it also allowed me, this memoir, to take a distance from myself and to not take myself so seriously, and to have a chance to laugh at myself. As I think it's a healthy thing to do, because one thing that us immigrants, and I think particularly Romanian and East Europeans, we tend to have this sense of sort of the tragic and a little bit of disdain for we came to America, but then everything is we're always comparing. And it allowed me to look at myself a little bit and to recraft myself and my psyche and to free myself from some of this hang-ups. I fell back into them once the book was written. We learned so little from our mistakes.
Yeah. Domnica, if I may, you talked earlier about the fluidity of life, and I feel like memoir is fixing that fluidity in text, it's writing and it's there forever. Even if you go back and want to re-edit it and republish it, it's still fixed there. And have you learned anything while writing this memoir? Have you learned anything about you as a person, about you as a writer? Something that you discovered because of the way of writing a memoir?
Yeah, I think just as I said, I think I have learned to put myself in perspective, because I tend to be a very, in my life, I have been a sort of very dramatic and theatrical person in life, not just on stage, and going to extremes. And I think the writing of the memoir did have a sort of a therapeutic function in that it allowed me to put a little bit of distance between myself and myself. And as I said, to not take myself so seriously and to put things in perspective. And also, you know, because the writing of this book was also a part of my continuous processes of finding homes and finding spaces of belonging. And I think it clarified to some degree for me, and this is how the memoir ends, it gave me some clarity about my homes, of being really my de facto home, being here in the small town that I've resisted for so long, that after a while I learned to make my own, where I have the memories of my children's growing up and where my children always come back. So I have grown roots, and sort of I have reconciled myself with that somewhat. It also has helped that this is the place where I had met my my present partner, my love that I am spending the rest of my days with, and the book ends with that. So I think it gave me a certain closure to, not in the sense that, you know, I'm going to die now that I've written this. I could write another memoir on another topic, you know. I think one can write several memoirs because we live many lives some of us live many lives in one life. I think we all do. But I certainly feel like I've lived many lives. But I think the fact that I brought this closure, and that the town that I have so much cursed and resisted for so long ultimately gave me the greatest sources of joy and fulfillment.
Thank you. Thank you for your answer, Domnica. Great.
Thank you for the great questions. I see Mihaela raised her hand, and there's very interesting comments in the chat, so feel free to read them. Somebody wants us to, or to get together for a book club so we can discuss the book in detail. That's a great idea. So Mihaela, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I have to confess and be vulnerable. I haven't read the book. But I'm thinking to propose it to a book club that, you know, where I belong to, one of them. And I'm sure everybody will be pleased to read the book because most of them are immigrants. But what I want to say is what really resonated with me in what you said, Domnica, is how you picked up, and I'm really curious to read more and even converse with you at some point, how well you picked up on the circularity of the memory. As we know, you know, the brain is malleable and pliable. And even for those who believe they have, you know, they take pride in linear thinking, knowing the logic and the sequence and everything, it's always circularity underneath. And I think it's so powerful that you mentioned that you know, the memories came back to you circularly, which is pretty much how it works. But to capture that and to write about it, I think it's great. And another thing that I heard you talking about, which really made so much sense to me professionally and also as a human, is that there is the intelligence and the memory of the body. So yes, the shock and the trauma, anxiety, everything that we can name it, it's felt in the body first, and then it's processed by the mind and name it. And I think that's amazing to talk about, because it's a lot that is happening in the pre-verbal stages, and we are so much in our heads and we want to make sense about everything. And the experience of a refugee, of an immigrant, it goes well beyond that mental cognitive understanding, because it's so layered. And I really appreciated what you said in your comments, and I proposed the book for the book club. And thank
I
you
can
so
even
much.
come and talk to the book club when I visit Chicago, which I do often.
Yeah, we
because
have
my
an
dear
online one.
mother still lives there.
Yeah, we'll spend, you know, a full day talking for sure.
Chicago, I always miss Chicago.
Yeah, you're always welcome.
Thank you, Mihaela. And I see Rodica raised her hand.
Oh, guys, I started as a reader in high school, reading everything from the library of the high school, then going to philology in Bucharest. And all those years were only on reading and looking for boys. And I was completely an introverted. Even when I started to do some work and I was teaching then in Brasov. But then when I came to the United States, and I will paraphrase Domnica, with a museum in the Suitcase. So that idea was because we had a collection. So that's all that it was. I knew that in the United States, some churches had some small museums, that's all. So how did I become then such a big fighter and fighter? Why am I the only Romanian woman fighter in this diaspora? And Domnica, I want to ask you, because it is about you, what would be your other lives? Because I'm so curious from all of you. I mean, what it connects us is because we are Romanian, and Romanian means also the common life of a collectivity, not so much, because people in the humanities do not get involved in the communities. Like in Romania, they are elitist, and here probably so. Or I'm very curious that part of all of you related to other Romanians, because if it is for you to write, on us to write, the drama, the more relevant and impressive aspects, of course they are personal, but then what about many others layers? Because as Mrs. Campion said, layers, and Domnica, the circularity and so on. But besides circularity, it should be going up, I guess. And by the way, growing up is growing to the adult life when you become more interested in the social, in the good of the communities, because you start as a teenager, very selfish and introverted and so on. But then later on, but it shows that Domnica is very young. So but I'm wondering what would be, and then what about the drama? The drama there, we didn't see the drama. Of course, I did not read it. So it's great. For me, you are the gift, all of you. I have been waiting for people in the humanities to show up in this country. By the way, my daughter went to comparative literature at Berkeley, and I didn't want that. I didn't want her to read in the high school. And I don't know how it happened, because anyhow.
Sorry, Rodica. So what is the question? Because I would like other people to ask questions.
The question is that I want to hear from her. If it is in the book, in the memoir, those parts that are her connection with Romanians in the United States.
With the Romanian community, with the Romanian diaspora?
Community or persons, because it's two categories. It's really two categories.
Well, yes. I mean, if we read the book, and I'm going to let Domnica answer,
Okay.
but I think that's the beauty of the book, because she's a citizen of the world while being Romanian and American at the same time. So Domnica,
yeah, you know, I want to say one thing is that I'm not at all a patriot. I do not. I think it's just by chance that we were born. You know, we don't choose where we were born, and it's a matter of pure chance that we're born in one place or another. I don't have particularly patriotism either for my native country or for my adoptive country. And I also spread myself into other cultures and countries. One country and culture and languages I have a very profound connection with and where I feel very much at home. In fact, I could say even more so than in either my native or my adoptive country and language and culture is French and France, because it is a non-conflicted culture. It is a culture of my literature, of my teaching, of my favorite language, and Italy and Italian as well. I live within several cultural and linguistic universes on a daily basis, and I like that, and I do not want to be settled and tied to anyone in particular. I wish I mean, it's where we were born and where we grew up is sort of inscribed in our flesh and in our blood, and we can't. There was a time when I wanted to break away from that, but one really can't, and it's a it doesn't lead you anywhere, and I have learned to live with all of these different parts of myself, the Romanian part, the American part, the French part, the Italian part, and everything else in between. I often feel very much at home in various other places, in Spain, in Seville, when I was in Israel, I felt at home. I just connect with different places in very different ways because I'm very open to the world, towards the world, and I don't feel any particular pride in my heart for being Romanian or American. I just live between, when I embrace it all, I embrace all of these cultures and draw from them nourishment. And I have, in fact, raised my children bilingual. They're both beautifully bilingual in Romanian, and then also they speak French and Spanish. So also about the circularity, one of the reviewers of the book that has given me the endorsement on the book called it zigzag. I think it's not always necessarily also circular, but also a zigzag. It goes in various, and it is very much of a puzzle. And the life story that I craft and that I capture in this book is somewhat zigzagged, and that it has edges, and purposefully so. It's not always rounded up, and that's just fine.
So you are a dramaturg, are you?
Yes, I'm a playwright as well, and a theater director, and I was also trained as an actor. Yes, theater is a big part of my life and of my artistic journey, very much so. It's in fact the thing that I have done longest than anything else, any other profession. And the first chapter starts with not just the last days before my escape, but also with my theater engagement with a countercultural theater group in Bucharest that sort of saved me from I don't know, deep depression, suicide before I escaped. I think Liliana and Roxana.
Yes, there's 3 hands up, and this is the order: Liliana, and then Theo, and then Roxana.
Roxana too.
Good evening, everyone, and just wanted to say thank you, Domnica. Congratulations. I'm also reading the book. I have it here with me halfway through. And I have a question for you. I think this is unique to have a Romanian write about her life, the life of an immigrant. And I'm wondering if you plan any book tour or how to market this book more, because it should be written, read by others too, not Romanians. We are mostly Romanians, I think, here tonight, but I think it would be important for Americans, for others to read. It's unfortunately, books about our small country and about Romanians, they don't get so much publicity, or they are not being marketed that well. So I'm wondering if you plan to do a book tour maybe, or any other way to really market this book.
Oh yes, sure. Actually, next Saturday I have a book signing event in Winchester, Virginia. I had a quite delightful book launch event last week here in my town, and was packed. And I definitely want this book to reach communities and people across all cultural lines, and not, of course, Romanians, but anybody else, anybody who's an immigrant, and in fact, people who are not immigrants, because it is important that the non-immigrant people understand that that's the ever-ending, never-ending issue with this country, the amnesia of American-born people, of the fact that their ancestry is immigrant, comes from different countries and are immigrants. So yes, I definitely, I do plan. Of course, now with COVID, things have changed a lot, and in-person bookstores are not so open to that. But I'm, as I said, I already had one. I'm having another one next Saturday. I plan several others. If any of you want to invite me, I'll come. I think
Sure.
I think we want to do something in Washington, D.C. When things open up a little, because I like to share my work with others, and because of my theater training also, I like to make a little bit of a good show from my book signing events.
Guys, at the Romanian Museum, we can house 10 people in center of Philadelphia, and it's very important because we are not planning to keep the building much longer. I have other big plans. I have to announce them to you. But meanwhile, that's my dream of either going to Bahamas in a vacation and writing about ourselves and recording, or at our museum, which is a different world, not necessarily Romanian. It's a different world, and I would like to see how you feel and what are you saying. And I would like to see that kind of happiness that you might even don't realize. I mean, really, I invite you. It's your museum, by the way. You have to take it.
Okay, Rodica, you invite me and I'll come. Philadelphia is only 5 or 6 hours drive.
Exactly. But please come as soon as possible.
I like road trips. I love to traverse states, American states.
I heard you that you are in a run with your suitcase. I heard you.
I love to do that. One of my favorite American experiences.
We made 40 trips to Romania, but then I would like to talk with you about the French part of you.
Okay,
because that was mine. That was mine as well.
Thank you, Rodica. Theo had a question too, and also Roxana, and we don't have much.
I will keep it short, more of a comment. Domnica, your memoir makes me think of a different memoir, the male version from long time ago, Things I Did and Things I Think I Did by Jean Negulescu. And he also did not conform to one cultural standard. He also affirmed his composite cultural identity as having lived in France for a while, and the way American society shaped him. So I would like to congratulate you for bringing the feminine experience of a refugee to the forefront, and bringing that voice. And not only that, but sharing your experience and creating a community of kindred spirits with other young at heart Romanian American artists, and guiding them. I congratulate you for your role. I know you do not accept the mantra of a mentor, because you're always a sister kindred spirit in that group. I congratulate you for this. You're playing a vital role, and you've proven it by publishing together with many of the members, some of them present here. You're such a valuable voice for Romanian Americans. Thank you for doing this and exposing yourself through this book, speaking genuinely about the experience, and not in categories of and canons established by what the role of womanhood would be in Romania or here in the United States. Just being yourself.
Thank you so much. I hope everybody will be so kind in their appreciation. of this. You know, I find it an absolute necessity for me to connect to others and to promote other authors, other artists' work. I feel that as artists, we have an absolute, it's a mission, it's an obligation to promote each other, to not withdraw into some kind of pretentious solitude and isolation, but to reach out, to create bridges and to create sisterhoods, particularly for women artists. We need to do that. And actually, Roxana and I are working on our second Voices on the Move collection, the pandemic version. It's so much fun to work with you, Roxana. You had a question or a comment.
And Alina might have something to say about that in that. I just wanted to speak to this idea of the hybridic identity that Domnica is really crafting in her memoir, where you really read this. There's always the question of becoming, right? That never gets abandoned. It's not that there's like this, long for return necessarily, and there's neither coming to terms with or being happy about being somewhere else, but there's always this in between, and this in between also is reflected in the ways in which the protagonist deals with her longing and her struggles, which are never over, right? And that last chapter really sheds beautiful light on that. It's not like that I'm no longer a foreigner. It's not that I am brimming with endless love for the small town, right? It's about owning my longing, right? The protagonist says, owning this like tiny little planet on which I am the tiny little prince, right? Or princess, and just like owning, right, that suffering. And because of that hybridic nature, I really do think that this memoir speaks to so many of us. In fact, I just happened to teach a chapter from Campbell and King this coming week in class on ethnicity and immigration between many worlds. It's an older work, but the argument is really like, this is who we all are, especially in the United States, right? This idea of multiculturalism and, not being exclusive with like being nice, right? In this nice little town with nice little people, right? So having that awareness about others and about yourself as well, not forget that longing, right, is what really makes this readable for a wide audience.
Yeah, I wanted to read a couple of passages right about that in closing, to read towards the end, but I want to let others have comments.
I don't know if there's any other questions. If not, Domnica can read. Yes, Lucia.
Thank you, Domnica, and it's such a delight to see everybody here. I wanted to remind everyone, to encourage everybody to buy Domnica's book, to make sure they get on their library websites. You all belong to several libraries. If you're like me, make sure you place a request. Every library has a form online where you can submit a request for the library, a recommendation to order their book. So see, Alina's in the house. Alina just had a new book. I think several of you have books coming out. Yes, and let's work together on lifting each other up and get to your library. See, many of us are frozen over here in the East. So get to your library website. Buy the book first, order it, and then get to your libraries and recommend that they order these books so that we find them easily. I think part of the reason that some of the American Romanian books may not get as much exposure is that we have to work harder in supporting each other and take pictures of yourself with the book on Facebook, on all the media you're on. So let's see what we can do together. Thank you. Thank you.
Wow, Lucia, can I hire you as my publicist?
Definitely.
Yeah, I do. I always buy. I have the books of several of you here, and I make it a point. I also teach the books of many of my friends. I taught Voices of the Move last year. It's important. Can I read this last couple of passages now?
Yes,
Otilia?
please, Domnica. Yes.
Okay, so this is towards the end, the last chapters. It was the story I had carried in my suitcase a quarter of a century earlier that connected me to the people of a remote southern town in the Virginian Appalachians. Becoming accepted and rooted in Chicago had been easy, making friendships, even if superficial at times, being appreciated in school or at work, getting jobs were no big deal in a city full of immigrants like myself. Had Zoila Valdivieso lived in New York and sponsored me to join her there, or in Los Angeles or Cleveland, Ohio, most likely it would have been easier than my small town odyssey had been. But I had found a groove of belonging, and that brought with it a new kind of acceptance. I compared myself to a tree transplanted to a new earth, which finds itself at the edge of drying out and dying in the alien soil. But in the end, its will of survival is stronger than its alienation. At some point, that tree starts growing crooked, twisted roots, until it meets the roots of the other local trees underneath the humid clay. And at that point, that tree of the crooked roots starts feeling at home in that earth. I planted an orchard just to prove my point and match my metaphoric thinking with the literal reality. It's not doing so well, that orchard, but it's out there. And the last passage. With the passing of time, the burning hole lined with all the yearnings and dor, Alina, and dor of my native earth isn't getting any smaller. The burning isn't getting any lighter. And the hole in my heart remains a crater with the perpetually smoldering lava of longing. Suffices a breeze carrying a certain smell, a lilac tree in bloom, the smell of snow on a dark moonless night, the taste of a piece of fruit, or the feel of the sun on my skin, the sounds of children playing outside, an old American song, the sound of thunder on a summer day, the smell of mothballs on an old coat, the slant of a sun ray filtered through the gauzy material of a curtain. The tiniest thing can prick the bubble of memories filled to excess and let the contents of it flow out with a vengeance, a true volcanic eruption. You realize it's not just the children you miss when you are away, but the places, the sounds, the expanses of land that you like driving across, your little piece of land with that very imperfect orchard you planted. And you realize you're screwed either way. You're one flying, burning body with flames at both ends like a double comet. You take refuge in the knowledge that you're part of a large group of such double comet people. That whether you left your country of birth by plane, by boat, by crawling under barbed wire, by walking through the desert, by swimming across a dangerous river or expanse of sea, you're part of that growing fraternity of the uprooted, walking around with your little volcano of memories, good and bad, yearnings and gashes, and you're among the lucky ones. Thanks.
Wow, I think it's the perfect passage for closing. I do, as you were reading, I did remember a passage when you were watching the Romanian Revolution in '89, and you were asking yourself, was it really worth it to leave 6 years before? And then you were you were breastfeeding your son, and it was such a beautiful, powerful image of the milk, the mother's milk, you were hoping that will transmit at the genetic level all this knowledge, all the landscapes, the sounds, the language, then very powerful writing. And I hope everybody who hasn't read the book will get it tonight, that like Lucia said, that you will promote it, you will take pictures of it, post them on Instagram, on Facebook, and of course at ARCS we'll do everything we can. And we are an example of intellectuals getting involved in the community work. So I think actually that things are not lost. I think there's a shift, at least in the last 10 years. And I have been witnessing this in all communities nationwide. So let's keep it up, and let's hope you will follow us and come to read the other authors in the series. And I will do my best to contact every one of you who got books out this year. So if I haven't, it's just everybody's on my list. I'm aware, and we'll get to you. So thank you so much. Have an excellent night. And Domnica, I will let you close it. I will let you say a few words. I don't want to be the, to say the final word.
Do you want? There is a Sebastian there has a question. Do you mind?
You do. Okay, please. Yes, I haven't seen the hand. Yes.
Good evening from Denver, Colorado, from Mitchell Yard, the Literary Circle. I enjoy reading your book, and
oh, you have it. Thank you.
Yeah, because I was fascinated by the first one, by Train to Trieste. And I discovered in your books, we don't have time to talk right now, I discovered in your books some influence from Hortensia Papadat-Bengescu, but also from Andrei Codrescu. And maybe sometime we have time to talk about that. But in the end, I have just one question, talking about the symbolism of your titles. Actually, in the first one, you have the word train in a title. In the second one, you have the word suitcase in a title. So for me, it looks like you are searching for something. You are looking for something in those books. And I would like to know, have you found your port, or are you still looking for? Did you discover what you're looking for? Or you have in your mind the idea for another book to continue that searching?
Of course, I'm always writing a new book. I'm revising my fourth novel. Actually, this is not my second. This is my, if I'm to consider Dreaming a Suitcase of a novel also, is my fourth. I have Train to Trieste, Black Sea Twilight, Country of Red Azaleas, and then Dreaming a Suitcase. And yes, of course, there are symbolisms. Usually the symbolism refer to places and to homes and spaces and borders, because those are my obsessions, and those are my journeys and my paths and what drives me, and the ideas and the themes that burn inside me and that nourish my creativity. And I mean, of course, I have found some port, as it shows in the end of Dreaming a Suitcase, but I am constantly evolving, and there is a certain temporality in writing a memoir, because at least I don't know about you, but I'm constantly evolving and moving and changing to some degree, while also keeping that deep core of myself. But some of the things I might regret, saying some of the things putting some of the things that I did in the memoir in 5 or 6 years from now, and that's just fine. Because this is this is an illustration, and it captures the moment, a certain moment in which I wrote it, and in which I felt that it was necessary to craft and to reveal certain aspects of my life. And if I were to write another memoir on a different theme, let's say motherhood as an immigrant, it would probably be different. So I have changing ports. I'm always, I like that metaphor that you use. I'm always looking for new ports, and to put anchor. Right now, I am anchored to a good degree here, still in Virginia, but I'm also anchored in other places. And also, my children anchor me. I think when one is an immigrant and has children, they root us. And my creativity roots me. So yeah, it's a never-ending it's a never-ending process. This a memoir is I think it's a phase, it's a stage, a very important one, but one that is part of a journey, of a longer journey that I hope to keep continuing.
All right. If there's, thank you so much, Domnica and Sebastian, for these last remarks. We do have the next writer is not confirmed yet in March, but it's a writer from that lives in France that just got the Prix Senghor, so she writes in French. But I don't want to commit yet because I haven't. Yeah, I need to come up with a date. So please follow us on our website. We will publish soon in the next few days. And then we have somebody from Seattle, and Irina Van Paden, who is here, Roxana Kazan. Hopefully, I know Adela Sinclair has her book out, but it's not out yet, right, Adela? Yeah, so I was looking for it, so we need to get in touch. And also Carmen Bugan and Clara Burgelia as well. So I have these authors lined up for the year. So,
and we're planning, Theodore, right? Can you say we're planning some kind of a festival of Romanian writers, of newly published books, right?
Yeah, I know the Romanian Cultural Institute is planning a collective reading that will be live streamed as well. So follow them. And also Theo has his plans. I don't know if you want to say a few words, Theo, about the event.
For the past few years, we've been celebrating outstanding Romanian American women in the arts and sciences here in DC, and spread extended the invitation throughout the continent. And of course, we'll plan to have an event early in March, the return to spring and the celebration of femininity this year as well. And yes, we are in the process of establishing a panel discussion on Romanian American writers, immigrant writers, and the whole experience with published by a university also this spring. Be on the lookout. Immigration Research Forum will
yes. Yeah, please
and
follow
I'm
us
sure the same
on Facebook. Yeah, so
Antilia.
I'm sure. Yeah, we will share the news and let you know in advance. All right. Well, thank you so much. Have a great evening. Thank you, Domnica, for your writing, for your vulnerability and passion and great art. And thank you, the special guests, Roxana.
Yes, thank you, Roxana and Alina.
Such a great pleasure to have you again. Yes.
Maybe one day we'll have a conference. All of us, we can be in person.
Oh,
Theo, you need to organize a big conference where we can all come in person.
I would love that. Our annual Romanian American professionals conference is in the first week of June. We'll still keep it this year.
Is it in person?
Invited. Unfortunately, we will not take that risk right now.
Oh, what risk? We need to get back to in-person.
So guys, I need to know. So why not at the Romanian Museum, which is the heart of Romania and the most beautiful place in the United States? Why not? Because
are you organizing that, Rodica? Are you
inviting us all? Absolutely. We are in Princeton. We go there every week. And again, it's a big place. It's many rooms. It's wonderful for creativity, for mini conferences, for the recording, for something that then we could showcase as something creative, really creative about ourselves and what we mean in this country.
We can have a performance of us Romanian artists.
I
can put
my plan is my plan is that we ourselves, as we are, we should just record ourselves. That's the first step, because it will be already a big achievement and something interesting, I am absolutely sure, because it will be unique. And then we will take it from there, because you as a you can do a drama with us. It can be a drama. It could be sequences of it. So let's do something more important and more creative, because I got tired of too many years that we are losing in our lives.
Well, thank you, Rodica. I think we're all organizing important events, but I would love to discuss more. And I'm going to stop the recording. I mean, we can discuss after this.